The founder and CEO of Your Outsourced CFO, Jeff Bruno, holds over 20 years of experience in financial and operating strategy. Jeff began Your Outsourced CFO with the goal of providing small business owners a strategic partner to improve the clarity of the financial process while aligning their growth goals with measurable metrics to help them reach their personal and company-wide objectives. Jeff holds a bachelor's degree from the George Washington University and a master's degree in international business administration from the Fox School of Business at Temple University. Jeff currently sits on one of Eric Lynn's boards in Pennsylvania. Jeff, if you're ready, I'll hand it on over to you.
All set. Thank you, Alexandra. Thanks, everyone. I want to thank the TAB board, TAB for having me on today in this webinar. I'm very excited to bring what I can to help support small business owners in the country, so throughout the country. So real quickly, Alexandra did a great introduction of our business. We are based in Philadelphia, and we are really that resource for small business owners who are looking for the 3 C's, we like to call it: the clarity on their financials, effective communication amongst their team and supporting characters, and cash flow, which every small business always has issues with. We are there to partner with you in the long term to help you succeed and hit your goals. So that's a tiny little bit about what we do, and glad to be here. So first off, I'd like to start with a very, very quick little poll, Alexandra, if you can. So. Should take 15 or 20 seconds here to answer.
All right, I think we got an answer. Let's see.
Nice.
All right, it looks like 37% of all attendees enjoy mint chocolate chip.
Really?
Yes, that surprised me too.
Wow.
And then the second most popular flavor is vanilla with 32%. The third would be other with 21%, and 11% like chocolate. And it looks like nobody on this call likes strawberry.
Yeah, great. Well, I wanted to throw out a little fun poll to start today, guys. So this is not just a boring financial start to our day. And that's interesting results there. I mean, I find that just so everyone knows, chocolate is the #1 flavor in the United States. And mint chocolate chip actually being 8% of people in the United States like that. So I find it interesting that this crowd leaned towards mint chocolate chip, which I would think shows that I have a strong crowd of entrepreneurs here, outside of the box thinkers, which is what we want, by the way, because those are the people that will be dynamic and hopefully try to maneuver their business forward towards growth on a consistent basis. I love it. Welcome, everybody. So one more, now back to the financial side. I'd like to throw one quick question out there on the poll out there on the financial small business side, if you could, Alexander. It'll take a little bit longer for this poll because I know sometimes you need to really think through this. What is in your business the biggest issue? So.
All right, I think we got our final answer. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the poll.
Great, thank you. And for this one, let me read the poll real fast. So if you can throw it up, Alexander, if I can, I don't know.
Sure.
But so it was, what was your biggest issue when making decisions as a small business owner? 1, either sales projecting. 2, financial clarity. 3, hiring the right people. or for setting up the right culture. So what were the results, Alexandra?
Yes, so it looks like the majority of everybody on this call, 48% is hiring the right people, followed by financial clarity, which is 28%, and then sales projecting at 12%, and it's neck and neck with setting up the right culture, which is also 12%.
Great, thank you. Very, very helpful. So, I mean, what we tackle from the very beginning with every client is your financial clarity, obviously, trying to get you there as an owner to understand your business. So that the number two thing here is financial clarity speaks to that small business market and what we're trying to help with as one of our primary goals. The other thing is hiring the right people, but I want to speak to that briefly before we jump into the slides, and I appreciate that as a response from everybody here because the people are your business, period. And I feel strongly about that as well. And culture helps hire the right people, but if you have the understanding of where you want to go and the financial knowledge, it can help you also pick the right salary ranges and the right scenarios to put the right people in the right place in your business. So all of these things are really interchangeable, and something that we also tackle in consistent strategy discussions with owners. So I love that those are the top two, because I would say that all the time. So I appreciate those responses. And now let's move on to the guts of the presentation here. So I will start with our first slide. We've been a huge proponent of PPP for all our clients. I think 95% of our clients receive PPP funds. And from the very beginning, so I'm just giving a quick update here on PPP, but from the very beginning, the strategy we employed with our owners was, look, this is a pandemic. There's a lot of uncertainty. Please use the funds from PPP as you would to run your business, with the understanding that that uncertainty is not going to go away anytime soon, and that you need to keep your business capitalized to go past 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months of when the funds could last for your business. From day one, we were pushing that. That is what is, for the companies that took that approach, they are extending their scenario into August, September, and October by running tighter ships according to that. And that was really, really good advice and a way to go. So forgiveness was not the number one idea. It was a loan, and a very favorable loan. So how to use those funds correctly. The reason I'm bringing up the updates on PPP forgiveness is because if you did qualify quickly within 8 weeks or within 10, 15 weeks of using the funds, you used it correctly for 60% of or more of payroll, you should apply for forgiveness as soon as you can. Now, some of the banks are delaying this process because they're waiting for further government information to come out on some of the scenarios, putting less emphasis on it. But if your bank is doing it, I would recommend applying as soon as possible so you can get this off your books. So speaking about a couple of the updates with it, just came out the other day, some more clarification that owner pay is capped at $20,833, as you can see in our first bullet here, or 20.833% of compensation from last year. Health insurance for owners with less than 2% ownership can be forgiven in addition to compensation. So that was a little bit of a question mark on that. Transportation, this was an odd one because we've had some companies, some clients that run fleets and things of that nature, and they were wondering, well, are all our transportation costs forgiven, mileage, things like that? So what they're saying on the recent update here is that other than utilities, only gas is forgivable. So that's where that stands. I don't know if they're going to add anything further to that. Also, one other thing that was important was employee benefits are not counted in the 25% pay reduction limit, meaning when you had an employee who you had to reduce, you couldn't reduce them from their former salary, you couldn't reduce them more than 25% for them to count as a full-time employee structure to get forgiveness for their salary. They're saying that the benefit deduction, like decrease in benefits, are not counted in that reduction, only salary. And then accrued interest. So that was some consternation around there. Well, I mean, it was only 1%, but am I going to have to pay interest on the loan even if I get it forgiven? And the answer is no. They're accruing it, but you will not have to pay it. So some clarity on that. That's pretty much it on the updates on PPP. I wanted to get that out there in the beginning of our presentation. Before we move on to the next slide, I want to make sure if there are any questions here from the group, as I want to keep this as interactive as possible as we go.
Yes, Jeff, we did get a question that came in.
Okay.
This person asks, how should I be prioritizing my PPP funds?
Sure. As I mentioned in the beginning here, I mean, it was important from the start to make sure you're doing it to run your business correctly. So that it didn't necessarily mean rehire everybody, because you wanted to extend it as long as you can to maybe to the full 24-week period. So if you successfully did that, congrats. If not, let's get it forgiven and let's move on. Now, here's a way to move on with that. EIDL. Some of the companies we deal with they've got them in April or early May, some of the PPP funds. They did what they could to run effectively, but now they're running out of that. And now EIDL up to 150,000, which is the emergency loan that was also supported by the CARES Act. If you can apply for that, do it. We highly recommend it. Essentially, it's extending your scenario for running your business, used for operational expenses to run your business, not for expansion opportunity, but for operational expenses. So that is a way to essentially help extend some of those PPP funds. Now that is a loan. You will not get any of that forgiven. I've had that question come up too. Well, is EIDL forgiven? No, it is not. It is a loan, but it's a 30-year loan fixed at 3.75%. The last time that has come around, I am not sure when. So very, very favorable. That's sort of the updates on some of the government loan processes. Any other questions there, Alexander?
That was the only one.
Okay, great. So now we dig into running your business. So, one of the things that this pandemic has done for us as business owners has really thrown into question our marketplace. It has thrown into question the demand that we're seeing. Is our market going to stay the same as it was? So these are big questions that have really haunted business owners. We have tried to plug in and assist here consistently. So an example, I'll give you one of the key examples. One of our clients is a manufacturer and a distributor of lighting equipment. And they had received PPP funds. So one of the things is we jumped on them and said, guys, listen, you've received PPP funds. Let's allocate some of those funds to see about adjusting revenues where we can. So they were flexible. They had a very strong manufacturing process, and they were able to quickly maneuver their manufacturing to PPE products. Now, a lot of businesses have done that. We said, that's awesome. That's great. It's an excellent way to plug your scenario right now. And they saw two of their highest month of sales, along with their normal product, but two of their highest month of sales in April and May with PPE. But we also said to them, be very careful here. This is going to exhaust itself. It will be, other players will come in as they have. They will eat away this market. That is the nature of capitalism. And you will have to set yourself up to make sure your revenue is still there. So what did they do? They had come to us when we first engaged and they said, gentlemen, ladies, I am looking to take my business from a distribution model more to a online retail slash online distribution model rather than through distribution channels. So we said to them, we love it. We think it's where a lot of this is going. That's what Amazon has done to a lot of the B2C marketplace. And since you're primarily B2B, you have an opportunity to do this. So we help them get in touch with a person, a company that specializes in starting up online retail operations from an e-commerce level. And they also took some of their PPP funds and the time they had while they were selling PPE in April and May to accelerate that pivot to the retail side. Now, are they fully in that? No. But they were talking about doing it 8 months to a year of a move into that space. Arguably, they're going to be much more in that space in 4 to 6 months. So this time has allowed companies like that to do this. Now, what has happened since May? Well, the lower demand, as I note on my second bullet here, has absolutely reared its ugly head. Their demand for PPE, the competition has grown, has come down, way down, and their demand for their products has come down. So while they've seen some of their best months, now they're starting to see some of their weaker months. But they were able to open up other channels faster. And if they position themselves right into the fall with the right marketing, the right approach, and in these new channels, they should be able to accelerate. And here's the other good thing. Because there's no middleman in these channels, there's some inventory questions and so on cost, but there's no middleman. So these channels actually have better margin for them. So they could sell less and do better. And people are looking for this as well. So this final gray part here at the bottom, we're adapting to new demand. I mean, I know every owner is thinking about this consistently on this call, but it is absolutely critical that you consistently stay ahead of this in your planning, using your cash, using your internal resources the best you can to maneuver to that demand, because who knows, there's still a lot of uncertainty there. So that's pretty much an example there. If I can ask for questions, Alexander, if there are any, as people are thinking about their own businesses.
Yeah, there was one that came up. This
Mhm.
person wrote in, I struggle to understand how to figure out profitability of my individual products or revenue line.
Oh yeah, that's a good one, because it happens with a lot of our clients. They don't understand how to, they'll say, I want to get in this revenue line. Is it more profitable or not? Or how are my products doing? And this is really a financial piece, but one of the things we always say to our clients early on, engage with them, is make sure you understand the difference between variable and your fixed expenses, to get very precise here. So I don't mean variable in the sense of discretionary. Be very clear here. I don't mean, well, that sort of ebbs and flows, cyclical, or things like that. That's not at all what I'm talking about with a variable expense. I'm talking about truly a contributive margin expense. So it tags with your revenue. 80, 90% tagging with your revenue for the most part as a variable expense. Figure out what that is, and you can really figure out then how profitable each of your products are. So what are the COGS associated with that tag with revenue? And really look into that precisely. That way, when you see that, you can spend less time on the ones that are not profitable, because you don't have the time and you probably don't have the cash to run your business that way, especially with decreased demand. So while you're lowering costs on your staff and you're managing that effectively, which I'm sure everybody was the first move people did in this environment, you need to make sure that you're not wasting valuable resource in the wrong areas. So any other questions on that, Alexandria?
No, yeah, no, that was the only one.
That was it?
That was
Okay,
it.
great. We will continue. So let me see here. Let me keep going to the next slide. 1 second. There we go. Okay. Great next slide in the sense of GP overview. That's kind of what I was talking about with contribution margin. It's essentially in a lot of businesses, it's gross profit. But what this marketplace has also done to us is sort of thrown us into a massive look at our business model, our GP, new planning methodology, and so on. And there's been a lot of industries, well, not, some industries that have had to be their workforce is all at home. So tech focused businesses, software developers, professional services, things like that have really shifted home, and a lot of them, including myself, um, have found that actually has created a new environment that I would say is a plus. It has made businesses like ours able to be more productive from home. Now, being more productive from home has its advantages and disadvantages. Of course, there's disruption, and thought process is harder sometimes. Creative thought process is a little bit harder. So you have to figure out ways to work that in. Maybe there's an occasional outside thing as things ease up where you can bring the team together and so on. But we've had clients like a software development client of ours who has really seen things improve where before people would take vacations or they'd be hanging out for hour lunches. Their productivity, they're working, utility has gone up from an 85, 87% to a 95% utility. They're seeing anywhere from 5 to 10% increase in gross profits on their business. Now, will that last? No, not necessarily, especially as things start to ease up here. But the point of this is that it allows the businesses to really see the better performers. It allows businesses to take some of that hyper-focused activity and see what they can do with that, and see if there's a better way to position people in their business for accelerating. So, and just plainly, having a better GP helps your bottom line cash, helps your business. So, I mean, as I put an example here, if you saw a 10% increase on your gross profit, I mean, it could be $400,000 of cash in a year on a $4 million business, because it's just that simple of a calculation. So, these are important times to stay ahead of the metrics, use the dollars wisely, use that 10% increase to put money in new investments, new ways to improve. Maybe your team needs better technology to work remotely. Take that money and put it in there. You'll see it in the efficiency consistently. So that's staying hyper-focused on the aspects of your business as an owner, which is hard, but is needed in this environment. So we're pushing that, we're tracking the metrics, and we're helping folks stay on top of that. So any questions there, Alexandria?
Yeah. Yeah, this gentleman wrote in, what do I do if my team is having a hard time managing home versus work balance? Or I'm sorry, work life.
Work
He
life?
gives an Yes, he gives an example. Like he's not considering hiring a CFO in Brooklyn because the expectation was that he would be in the
Understood.
office. Hmm.
Understood. I know exactly where you're going with this. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
You're fine.
So yeah, I think that home life is, it is hard. I mean, we're having, I mean, even here today, webinar. I mean, I can imagine some people are checking in and some people are checking out as I'm talking here, because there's a little bit of webinar fatigue going on. So I understand that it's hard. We're coming into September. We're going to have, our kids all going back to school if you have kids, and college for older kids. It's a hard thing to manage. I have specifically blocked out my calendar from 8 to 9, or so I can take the kids in because my wife's going back to work. These are all hard things that we have to manage as business owners, and we have to give our employees that space. So I recommend, things like layout metrics. There's nothing people can resonate more with is actually having goals and metrics. So there's obviously metrics from the financial side you could throw out, but if you tie it to bonuses for your team, great, even better. But sales team could have activity metrics. You could reward them for activity metrics. Hey, if you got 5 virtual appointments a day, that's all I ask for, and we'll give you, $100 a week extra bonus for hitting that goal. I mean, even little things like that are needed more now from a management side than they were before. Before, people would come into the office. You can come in and say, John, Sally, how'd that go? Come on, John, really, I need you to step it up here. But now, since our times are so shifted at home, it's better to have something planned there where you can track it. But something that people can resonate with and tag into is important in their line of work. So, I mean, again, more strategies on how to manage the business, which is consistently what we do with these owners. So, anything else there, perhaps? Any other
That was
questions?
that was the only question that came in for that.
Okay, good. Well, what I want to say about this 10% increase, there's another couple things here I want to point out as you see in this slide. So, what do you do with that money? Invest in labor, resources, marketing. So that, I mean, people are scratching their heads. What do I do with this? Well, it's really important that you think through where you want to put that money. Where is your business positioned to do it? Where are you in a good situation where you can invest in getting your business back to growth? Are you, do you need to stabilize your business? Do you need to other scenarios that might come together? And why I'm asking all this is it leads to one other poll I'd like to ask the group here. This is our last poll, so that we're not inundating you with polls. Is something I wanted to throw up now, Alexandria, if you would. Probably take about 30 seconds on this one too. Good, Alexandria?
Yes, I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and close it.
Oh, good. Great.
And it's all right. So the final answers are 36% are with payoff loans or CC with higher rates. 27% invest in more people, process, or equipment.
Okay.
32% build up a reserve fund. And 5% pay yourself back for the hit you took.
I love it. Interesting. That's great. This is a driven crowd here. So the question was, if you saw a 10% increase in your GP, what would you do with the extra cash flow? And, the fact that people said, build up a reserve fund, invest in more people and pay off loans, that's great. And those were pretty split as part of the scenario here. And 5% pay yourself back. So that shows a group here that wants to invest in their business. They see it as coming out of this. So, I mean, if you were able to ride the storm out, you're somewhat stabilized. I mean, it's clear you should invest in more people, process, and equipment because there are others that are not doing so well, and you will have an advantage. The other thing is, you might have taken some loans that are, loans that are not favorable, or you have some really high interest credit card debt, as I mentioned, and I love that you would need to stabilize that. One important finance thing to look at there, look at your cost of capital. Always think about that. If you have other means of, if getting another piece of equipment in, for example, can save you, or hiring another person can save you efficiency more than paying off that debt, and you want to use your money for that, always evaluate that where you're at. But I do love the idea of getting some of that high interest debt off your books. And then the big topic here, build up a reserve fund. So nobody wants to go through this again. I mean, nobody wants to go through a pandemic ever, but nobody as a business owner really wants to have this pain of not having enough cash in a downturn. So putting aside some of that reserve, if it's the smartest plan, if you evaluate where your business is positioned right now, is a great idea. We're recommending 3 to 4 months at a minimum of cash flow, cash reserve of your operating expenses. Before we've had our average, I think, was 6 weeks of cash reserve for our business owners. So that is a very, very smart play. But not only does it allow you to avoid a downturn, but it will allow you to pivot. We'll use that word. That's a very popular word today. But it'll allow you also to, at a certain point, potentially reinvest in your business for something else. So it's not for the short term, for maybe a 3 to 6 month type of scenario. So there are a lot of advantages to that. Great. Thanks. We can move on. Any other questions before I move on here, Alexander?
That was it.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So funding options. And I believe this is one of our last, we have one more slide after this, so everyone understands where we're at in the presentation. So we have funding options. Well, there's private and federal. And what I mean by private, I mean local, private, I mean banks, maybe even some local like city, and federal. But we're starting to see this with our client base, so I want to heed some caution here. Banks are tightening their lending. They're pulling in their risk. They've done a lot of PPP lending. They've had their focus on that. But now with things still uncertain, banks are starting to stabilize their balance sheets towards the end of the year, and they might be pulling down lines or looking at terming out certain dead money that they might not have been before. So that is starting to put some pressure on business owners. So that's another thing you need to be careful about when you're making considerations. Oh, my line will be there. I'll have 2 million in a line, no problem. Well, be careful. You might not have 2 million in a line. It might be $1.25 million in a few months when the banks reevaluate things. So be very careful there. EIDL, I mentioned earlier, it's a valuable resource for your business, and I highly recommend applying for it if you have not. Needs to be used and tracked for the things it's supposed to be used for. But if your business is trudging along here, get it. Actively seek out local loan or grant programs. PA announced another grant program a few weeks ago. I think 250 million. Part of it was for minority business owners and disadvantaged owners. I think 100 million of it or something like that. But actively seek that out. Look for that consistently because you never know if you could take advantage of that. And then be careful with alternative debt money and of course predatory lenders. They should be avoided. If the way I see them is the last resort, period. And audits, we're starting to see more Department of Labor audits. We're seeing, state audits on sales tax come back. Things are the governments are starting to stabilize there, and they're doing the same thing banks are in the sense of, hey, if you're not in line with regs, we're going to make sure you are and check it out. And it's time consuming and so on. So make sure you have your books in order because they are starting to take place, audits, probably accelerating in the fall, I would believe. So just some thoughts around this. Any questions here about local things or people who've been dealing with anything on the lending side?
Yes, there was a question that came through. This person wrote down, when would I want to use a higher interest rate short-term debt piece?
So that's really along the lines of alternative debt. And, it's a downward spiral with that. So you got to be very careful when you use that. If there's an extraordinary hit to your business, meaning you're somewhat stabilized with PPP and so on, and then you have a month or two of some unexpected cancellation, and you need to plug a hole, but otherwise you think your market's okay. For that short term, it's sometimes those are good alternatives. But to use it to fund a business back to growth, or to use it in lieu of a credit line, or to use it to make sure you get paid personally if the business can't afford it, is one of the worst ideas you could do as a business owner. Because it will, the cost of capital there could be 50%, 100% on some of these loans when you look at it on a annualized basis. So be very careful with that, and it's only for a plug scenario in most cases. If there are no other questions, I'll jump to the next slide.
You're good to go.
Good. So our last slide, and our most important, strategizing for liquidity projection. Now, I'm making this a little bit, tweaking this a little bit. So everybody says cash is king. I'm saying liquidity is king. So what do I mean by that? So your business alone may not be able to support the needed cash reserves. So when I say liquidity, I'm saying look at your whole business operation. Look at your lines. A lot of the business owners here are probably LLC and sub S owners. That's what majority of small business owners are. So a lot of the time, this is all passed through to you. So personal cash reserve or equity from an owner is part of the liquidity situation. Look at your personal balance sheet. Look at your personal financial statement. That needs to be in your liquidity calculation. Now, if this business is part of your livelihood as a whole, it's even more important that you consider that, because if the business goes away, where unemployment is right now, there's just not a lot of jobs out there in the marketplace right now. So keeping liquidity for your business so it does not fail is key. Partnership. If your whole market has condensed, so let's look at the commercial real estate market space. I spoke with a commercial real estate broker friend of mine. He had 25 deals, active deals pre-COVID. He has 3 right now. So the commercial real estate market is devastated. And the businesses feeding the commercial real estate market are getting hammered. So when you have a pool that's coming down, the only way to keep liquidity up if your sales levels just are not going to rebound is to look at partnership. Look at as coming together with other people in your industry. I'm sure they're looking for that too, because they're probably struggling. That I see as a liquidity scenario. It's how you can acquire cash. It's how you can help stabilize by coming together with another party. And I mean, we've been saying this for 5 months. It's so clear on the uncertainty of the old or new demand generation is why you need this liquidity. And I don't mean that just what I was saying before, that the old revenue is no longer there. Even in the new revenue scenarios that you might do, who knows? They could shut down, Uber said they're shutting down in California today, part of their stuff. I mean, states could shut down again. Things could change for the next 5, 6 months, 8 months. Who knows what's out there? So even new demand is threatened. So you need to be very careful and conserve liquidity. And as also earlier, the risk coach is flipping back the other way. Everybody's got to protect their business, including banks. So the friendly capital market funding is decreasing. The lines before, when you were a $5 million business, you can get a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 line. Now you might only get a $250,000 line, or you might not get any. That friendly market is decreasing the availability, and that's part of your liquidity calculation. So, real important. I hope that this emphasis is here, and people are looking out for this. And metrics, everyone, bring that back. Metrics are important in this to see how much room you have moving forward. So if there aren't, I think that was it on that last slide there, Alexander. Are there any other questions regarding liquidity?
No, there's nothing that came in yet, but
Okay.
let's go ahead and go to your contact information and see if anybody has any questions while we go over that.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
So after today's presentation, I'm going to be sending out an email to everybody that has joined us today. It will have a copy of the slide deck that we just went through and the recording. And it will also have this piece of information. So if you're a little too shy to ask a question now or if something pops up in the near future, please feel free to contact Jeff at his email or phone number. And that was a lot of wonderful information, Jeff. I know I learned a lot myself. It's not usually my forte. So it was wonderful. And
Sure.
I think that, oh, yep, we got somebody that has a question.
Okay,
Um,
good. Before we wrap up, happy to answer anything. Sure.
yes, as business owners, we are getting pressure from every direction. My strategy is to go back to basics and start planning. Would you agree that is a good strategy?
Oh, absolutely. So look, yeah, whoever said that is brilliant. I mean, I would look at the unit economics of your business model, pull it down to the basics, like they just said. Pull it down to what am I pricing at? What is my gross margin, gross profit? What is my marketplace? How much can what is really the money I can get out of this? And look at that again before, it's very smart to make sure you do that. It helps with planning. I mean, all the old historical stuff can be useless right now. It's the trends that people used to look at historical, throw them out, pull it back down and look at it again and see how you reposition. Absolutely. It's a great idea. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Great. I hope that answered your question. I think it totally did. Again, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everybody can check out all of our previous Boss webinars on demand by visiting our website and clicking on webinars. Next month, we will be featuring marketing. I also wanted to tell you, Jeff, we just got somebody that came in that said that was fantastic and thank you. I agree
Yeah. Thank you.
100%.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining today, and I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.